In the quiet hum of dawn, Lila scrubbed the marble floors of the Vanderbilt mansion, her knees aching against the cold stone. The sprawling estate, nestled in the hills of upstate New York, gleamed with wealth, chandeliers that sparkled like captured stars, walls lined with art that could feed a village for years. At 19, Lila was invisible here, a shadow in a starched maid's uniform, her hands calloused from years of toil. Orphaned at 12, she'd learned early that life didn't hand out favors. She worked to survive, to save for a dream she barely dared to name, a nursing degree, a chance to heal others as she'd never been healed. The Vanderbilts were a name whispered with awe. Richard Vanderbilt, the billionaire CEO of Vanderbilt Enterprises, ruled his empire with a steely gaze, his fortune built on tech innovations that powered half the world's devices. His son, Ethan, was the opposite, a 22-year-old enigma with tousled dark hair and eyes that seemed to carry a private sorrow. Lila had seen him only in passing, striding through the mansion with a quiet intensity, always on his way to somewhere else. The staff whispered about him, brilliant, kind, but untouchable, the heir to a legacy he didn't seem to want. Lila's days blurred into a rhythm of cleaning, cooking, and fading into the background. She didn't mind. The work paid enough to keep her tiny apartment and chip away at her savings. But there was a warmth in her, a spark that refused to dim. She'd slip extra food to the groundskeeper's dog, hum softly to herself when the silence of the mansion grew heavy, and once, when a new maid broke a priceless vase, Lila took the blame, sparing the girl a firing. Kindness costs nothing, her mother used to say, and Lila carried those words like a talisman. One crisp October morning, as leaves swirled outside the mansion's towering windows, Lila was polishing a silver candelabra in the library. The room was Ethan's domain, lined with books from floor to ceiling, a place where he'd retreat for hours. She'd never seen him there, but his presence lingered, a half-finished sketch on the desk, a worn copy of The Great Gatsby left open. She was careful, moving silently, when a voice startled her. "You don't have to be so quiet. I'm not a ghost." Lila spun around, the candelabra nearly slipping from her hands. Ethan stood in the doorway, his hands in his pockets, a faint smile tugging at his lips. He was taller than she'd realized, his sweater slightly rumpled, as if he'd just rolled out of bed. I'm sorry, Mr. Vanderbilt," she stammered, her cheeks burning. "I didn't know you were here." "Ethan," he corrected, stepping closer. "And you're Lila, right? The one who took the fall for Maria's vase incident?" Her eyes widened. "How did he know?" "It was nothing," she said quickly, focusing on the candelabra. "Just doing my job." He tilted his head, studying her. "Most people here look out for themselves. Why didn't you?" She hesitated, her mother's words echoing in her mind. It felt like the right thing to do. Ethan nodded, as if her answer explained something he'd been puzzling over. "You're different," he said, almost to himself, then turned and left without another word. The encounter lingered in Lila's mind, a small disruption in her routine. She didn't expect to see him again, not like that. But over the next weeks, Ethan seemed to appear wherever she was, carrying linens in the hallway, dusting the grand staircase, or sneaking a moment to read a borrowed book in the garden. He'd stop to ask her questions, small things at first, her favorite book, To Kill a Mockingbird, the music she liked, old jazz, her father's records, why she worked so hard, she dodged that one. His curiosity disarmed her, but she kept her guard up. He was a Vanderbilt, and she was no one. One evening, as Lila swept the terrace under a sky bruised with dusk, Ethan appeared again, this time with a purpose in his step. "Lila," he called, his voice softer than usual. She paused, broom in hand, her heart inexplicably racing. "Yes, Mr. Ethan?" He stopped a few feet away, his expression unreadable. "Why do you stay here? This place, it's a cage. You're worth more than scrubbing floors for people who don't see you." The words stung, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. She gripped the broom tighter. "I need this job. It's not forever. I'm saving for school. Nursing." He raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Nursing? Why?" She looked away, the weight of her past pressing against her chest. "My mom died when I was 12. Cancer. The nurses, they were the only ones who made it bearable. I want to do that for someone else." Ethan's face softened, and for a moment, he wasn't the billionaire's son. He was just a person carrying his own unseen scars. "I'm sorry," he said. "I didn't know." "You wouldn't," she replied, not unkindly. "We live different lives." He stepped closer, his voice low. "Maybe. But I see you, Lila. I've seen you for a while." Her breath caught. There was something raw in his words, something that made her want to believe him. But she couldn't afford to. I should get back to work, she said, turning away. Lila, wait. His hand grazed her arm, gentle but insistent. I'm not trying to make you uncomfortable. I want to help. You shouldn't have to fight so hard for a dream. She pulled away, her voice firm. I don't need pity, Ethan. I've made it this far on my own. It's not pity, he said, frustration creeping into his tone. It's respect. You're the most real person in this house, and no one else seems to notice. She didn't know how to respond. No one had ever spoken to her like that, as if she mattered. She mumbled an excuse and hurried inside, her heart a tangled mess. The days that followed were a quiet storm. Ethan kept his distance, but his words echoed in her mind. She noticed small things, a new book left on the library desk with a note that read, "For Lila, keep dreaming," or a thermos of coffee appearing in the staff kitchen on her early shifts. She told herself it was nothing, that he was just being kind, but the gestures chipped away at her defenses. Then came the gala. The Vanderbilts hosted an annual event, a glittering affair for the elite, and the staff worked overtime to prepare. Lila was assigned to serve drinks, her uniform swapped for a simple black dress that felt foreign on her skin. The ballroom buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses, the air thick with perfume and power. She moved through the crowd, invisible again, until she saw Ethan across the room. He was in a tailored suit, shaking hands with men twice his age, but his eyes found her, and they held a question she couldn't answer. Halfway through the night, disaster struck. A guest, a red-faced man with a booming laugh, stumbled into Lila, sending her tray of champagne flutes crashing to the floor. The room fell silent, all eyes on her as the man sneered, "Watch where you're going, girl." Humiliation burned her cheeks, but she knelt to clean the mess, her hands shaking. Before she could stand, Ethan was there, crouching beside her. "Let me," he said quietly, picking up the shards. The crowd murmured, shocked to see the Vanderbilt heir on his knees. He ignored them, his focus on her. "You okay?" She nodded, unable to speak. He stood, offering her his hand, and when she took it, the warmth of his touch steadied her. He turned to the guest, his voice calm but sharp. "You owe her an apology." The man scoffed, but Richard Vanderbilt, watching from the sidelines, stepped forward. "Do as my son says," he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. The guest muttered an apology, and the crowd moved on, but Lila felt the weight of Ethan's gesture like a lifeline. Later, in the quiet of the kitchen, Ethan found her. "You didn't have to do that," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yes, I did," he replied. "No one gets to treat you like that. Not while I'm around." She looked at him, really looked, and saw the boy behind the name, a boy who carried his own burdens, who saw her when no one else did. "Why do you care?" she asked, her voice breaking. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "Because you remind me what matters. You're kind, Lila, in a way this world isn't. And I'm tired of pretending I don't feel something for you." Her heart stopped. This was impossible, dangerous, a line they couldn't cross. But in that moment, she didn't care. She let herself feel the pull, the hope, the spark of something real. "I can't," she whispered, tears stinging her eyes. "You're you, and I'm on me." "You're enough," he said fiercely. More than enough. The weeks that followed were a dance of stolen moments, conversations in the library, walks in the garden, a shared laugh over a spilled bucket of soap water. Ethan told her about his mother, who died when he was young, and his strained relationship with his father, who saw him as a tool for the empire. Lila shared her fears, her dreams, the weight of a life spent fighting to be seen. They were different, yes, but their hearts spoke the same language. The climax came on a snowy December night. Lila was working late, tidying the dining room, when Ethan appeared, his face pale. "My father knows," he said. "About us." Her stomach dropped. "There's no us, Ethan. We can't." "There is," he interrupted. "I'm not letting you go, Lila. Not because of him." Before she could argue, Richard Vanderbilt entered, his presence filling the room like a storm. "You're dismissed," he said to Lila, his voice cold. "You'll find a generous severance in your account. Leave tonight." Lila's world tilted. She nodded, her throat tight, and moved to leave, but Ethan stepped between them. "No," he said, his voice steady. "She stays. Or I walk away from all of this. The company, the money, everything." Richard's eyes narrowed. "You'd throw it all away for a maid?" "For her," Ethan said. "She's worth more than your empire." The silence was deafening. Lila's heart pounded, torn between fear and a love she hadn't dared name. Finally, Richard spoke, his voice softer. "You're serious." "I am," Ethan said. "And if you fire her, you lose me." Richard studied them both.